Welcome back, everybody. Now, today's guest, right, has played hockey at a professional level. He's the most motivated person I've spoken to out with myself in the mirror every day. He's career driven, game focused, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for about roughly 2 years, I think, off and on because of the breaks where the gyms were closed and gyms were open again. But I think it was last year, the year, I can't remember, whenever it was. He has helped me through hard times recently, and I'm obviously very grateful for that. And he's also played for Scotland in ice hockey. It is Mr. Cammy Paton. How are you, mate?
I'm good, pal. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people will be interested, how we came together because there's not like a because obviously it's ice hockey you do, or hockey we'll
Mhm.
just say hockey. Well, I know it has to because hockey's actually can be played on the grass. So ice hockey you do.
Yeah, aye.
Obviously, I've never played that type of sport in my life, but and I'm genuinely like Bambi on ice. It's crazy, but like I think like it's an interesting story is I don't know if you want to tell it because for everybody that watching this now or listening to it, I guess, we recorded this last week, but Cammy decided he was going to do the very very grateful thing and read lip read everything I was saying. So then we just felt like it just it just wasn't things weren't communicating and it just wasn't that great. So
Yeah, my microphone turned off halfway through. So sorry, my computer speaker, sorry, stopped
Hmm.
working, so I couldn't hear a thing you were saying.
Yeah, I mean we gracefully through it. It was a good podcast, but 100% could have been to the level that this one will be at. But yeah, do you want to tell the story instead of me telling it like last week?
Yeah, so I think from how I remember, I think it was not Christmas, just before lockdown there. I think I was there with my
Yeah,
one of my friends who'd just come through for uni, and we were training together at the gym, and he decided to do deadlifts for the first. It was, well, for me, it was my first time doing them in about 6 months because I don't usually. It's something I usually do, but I thought I'll give it a try. So I think I went for. I think I want to say it was 140. I went for, and my grip started failing me. Then
yeah.
you gave me a shot of these. I don't know what they're called. You'll know more than me. But
Gorilla grips, I think, something like that.
right, look, it sounds familiar from the branding on them. But yeah, just to get that final few reps and then did the magic. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was just I actually did it again recently for a really nice guy called Steven, really nice guy. I mean, he came over and like to the rack next to me, and I was like, because I like the one with the mirror when I'm doing rack lifts because I feel when I'm looking, I'll usually look at myself so that because I know if my eye level hits a certain bit, my back's fine. But I know if my eye level doesn't, it's weird, but it's like shoulder press.
Right. Yeah.
I need to see myself so I know what I'm doing in that. So I was on that rack and he came to the one to the left of me. For people that don't know, Gym 64 in Glenrothes. Um, and he was doing 60 and then 80, and then I was doing, I don't like talking about what I was doing, but I was doing eight at a certain weight, and he came over and asked, and he was wanting me to check out his back, and the next thing I know, I actually ended up giving him the grips for free and that because he was just a cool guy. But it's the most thankful thing ever. It's a weird thing, isn't it? When you give somebody something like that, they're always like, "Can I give you money or stuff?" Like I don't understand that. I'm more like I would just rather give you it to help out. But anyway, that's not here nor there. Stephen is not on this podcast. But anyway, something I'm curious, right, is obviously with a young guy like yourself and that, 19, I think that a lot of people will be wondering why I said career driven, but based over anything. And I think like my question
Hmm.
is, why is it that you personally are um, career driven based over the classic 19-year-old lifestyle, which from myself was going out every night and all this sort of stuff? What made you want to be the career driven person you are?
Um, I think it's just something I've always done. I think I can remember playing sport from about when I was about three. I think I was into all different sports, and I just knew that I wanted to do something in sport. Like when or I guess I wanted to play sport to a high level for as long as I could. And
Mm.
then and it was always I had an interest and I always threw myself into everything. But then I knew I knew for me, I mean I was never when I was younger, this partying going out tight. purely because I knew if I did that, that was a night that I had to miss training or miss going to the gym, and I'd almost be taking a step back from where I wanted to be, in terms of performing it, whether it be hockey or whatever sport I was in at the time. But yeah, it was always just, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew how what I was going to do to get there. And it was always just keeping that in mind. And it was a bit rough sometimes seeing my friends out and being at parties and going to school like on the Monday after the weekend and hearing stories about crazy things that have happened. And then I'd been at the gym, or I'd been doing an extra session of hockey with a different team, or like a recreational team or something, just to get extra practice in. But then in my head it was worth it, because I knew that if I kept doing that, it would add up. And it was all about, for me, it was all about feeling good about where I was at in my own game, and doing that stuff helped me achieve that feeling. So it was I always sort of weighed up against, like, right, I can go out and have a drink and just be a bit wild, or I can go and get the extra practice in that will benefit me in the long run. And that was why I chose to not do that sort of stuff.
I think it is obviously, it's really admirable, especially for people nowadays. I think like nowadays we're very, very, very career driven, not necessarily like just because from an academical point of view. I think we just genuinely are very, very, very career driven. But obviously this has been going from the conversation we had, back when I first met you, and that actually, I think it was after, well, we had a conversation then, but I think it was after the first, the lockdown that just literally happened. We obviously had a conversation in the gym. Yeah, we had a conversation in the gym about it, and you started hockey when you were really young, like really, really young. Was there like was there a reason? Like, are your parents, or your are they hockey fans, or was it just like, was it genuinely just it's like just a you thing, or was it like, is there outside influences in it?
Yeah, so they are definite hockey fans. They actually got me into it. They started going to a few games, and I think I must have been about 5 or 6. So I was quite young, and I'd been skating. I'd actually been skating before I went to play hockey, and I was on and off for the skating because it was just something extra to do in my time. And then hockey being quite rough, I think they wanted to make sure it was okay for me to go and watch it, the physicality. So I think they finally decided, right, okay, we'll bring Cammy with us. And my first game, a big massive fight actually ensued. But it's just kind of funny how they've been making sure it was good for me. Then the one game I go to, it all kicks off. But after that, I think I was asked, is this something you want to try? And I was like, yeah, definitely, because at times into everything, and it just had something different. Like I think I'd done like football and different martial arts, and I'd done the sort of typical ones that you'll do as a youngster before that, and none of them even did bowls, like lawn bowls. And in the time I used to play, hockey, but then hockey just hit different for me. I started out as a skater. I'm now a goalie, but even doing that, like, it wasn't really the position as such. It was more just the game itself. It just something about it just had me hooked instantly.
Is there like a I still have to go back to because skating's quite cool. I actually want to buy this, because I genuinely am not good with certain things. But I want to buy like the 4 skates, like 2 wheels at the front, 2 wheels at the back, the classic 70s or 80s or whenever it was skates. They're so cool. But I think that I'm still personally curious that why, because you said you done football, and we'll get into cricket in a little bit, but I think that it still makes me curious why hockey, because obviously you're in Scotland. Hockey's not like the natural. It's obviously huge over here with Dundee Stars, Fife Flyers, and everyone else. But why still hockey? Why was, over everything you done, why was it still hockey?
I mean, at the time, about its popularity, at the time it was even smaller. There was very few people playing it. I think in my whole school there was like maybe 1 or 2 of us playing it. There was not a lot at all. I liked how fast paced it was. That's still why I like it now. I liked how switched on you had to be for all the time. It was just a different type of challenge. Like, it just challenged everything. I couldn't really switch off for a minute because something would happen and I'd miss it, or one might go straight past me, or I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but there's not maybe one exact reason. I think it was just all those sort of reasons combined that it just had me hooked and still does.
Mm. So like when you played football, what position did you play?
Oh, I don't. This is going back a wee while. I was a defender because there was a time when I played football and hockey at the same time, but I had a defender because
Yeah,
I didn't mind getting in front of the ball, ironically.
I I genuinely was the way to say that. It's because obviously the puck and the ball. It seems to be that if you were a way to say it, either a defender or a goalie, it genuinely would have clicked. Like it's always that kind of defense thing and that, which again is admirable from yourself. But what was it like growing up when I know very from the podcast for the people that are listening, obviously you that are watching, it's going to be it will be a little bit different this one compared to most of them, to be honest. But what was it like growing up when you focused on something like a sport versus going out with your mates? I'm not saying you didn't ever go out with your mates. I'm just saying, from the context and stuff for people that don't know, he genuinely didn't. He did genuinely focus on the sport and
Yeah.
stuff all the time. And then, so what was it like living the kind of lifestyle where you kind of focused on sport over and sport and within other stuff versus the, going out drinking and, all the underage stuff that people usually do? What was it like living that kind of lifestyle, versus the normal kind of lifestyle? Well, normal, quote unquote.
Yeah. Being honest, a little bit tricky at times. There wasn't really a lot of people that understood, because at the time, I took hockey very seriously, but in that sort of age, you're unsure where it's going to go. Me especially, I was a bit unsure, like, is this going to play out for me? But I just thought, if I stick at it and keep doing what I'm doing, then I'm putting myself in the best possible situation to take the chances when they come and to make chances for myself. And that was really what kept me going, because I'll be honest and say that probably a few times that I wish I had gone out and done things and whatnot, but then looking back on it now, it's like, well, it was everything that I did, and not doing that and taking on the extra hockey session, doing the extra gym sessions, whatnot, was all worth it. And for me, it was always, I felt better in myself if I went out and did an extra hour or two of like skating or a gym or whatnot, and then came back and did whatever, than if I'd gone out for a night drinking. To me, that was almost wasted time. Obviously, I'm not knocking it. I enjoy going out for the occasional pint at myself now with my friends. But at the time, to me, it was wasted time, because it was time that I could be doing something else that got me a step closer. Because I always knew, looking around me, I knew the people that were doing that, weren't wanting to do what I was wanting to do. And I just knew that I would live a different life from then, because I had to, because I had this goal that I was chasing and this thing that I wanted to do. And in order to do that, I had to do things differently. And that was just how I saw it and why I did it, really.
Was there any because obviously being driven and having a goal it can come within, but it comes with either like reason, like for, everybody knows the reason I do a lot of stuff, my personal is like anxiety, mental health stuff. But I think that the a lot of people do wonder what the outside influences are when it comes to somebody that gets involved with sport, because there will be a lot of people in sport that watch this that will be curious about how they take it to the next level and what they have to do and stuff like that. So was there any outside influences with you, where like your parents maybe pushing you towards sport, or maybe like your mates kept you going, or maybe like there was someone else or something, or was it just sheer personal thing?
I think to a certain degree, I come from a very hard-working family. Like mum, dad, granddad, they all worked very, very hard, and they've all got a good work ethic. But I think in terms of the hockey, from my family, I'm the only really sort of sporty one, or to this much of a degree. But I just knew nobody was going to do it for me, and I knew that from quite a very young age, actually, that nobody was going to hand me anything. And I almost didn't want anyone to hand me anything, because I wanted everything that I had and did. I wanted to be able to say, well, I did that myself. And I knew that whatever I wanted, I was going to have to go and make for myself. And obviously, like, parents like supporting and whatnot. make for myself in the sense that I had to put the work in to get the opportunities and then take them when they came, and to make sure that I was putting my best foot forward every time that I went out. But obviously coming back, parents are always going to support you because they want the best for you. But I wouldn't say I was overly, especially I had a little break from hockey, and I went back when I was about, I think I gave up when I was about 11 and went back to when I was 15. Especially after that, I was never, after coming back to it and then end up like playing professional ranks and whatnot, I was never pushed to do anything. It was always very much on me. It was always like, if you want to go and do it, then go and do it. But nobody was pushing me to go and do anything because it was just about doing what was right for me. But that's when I really sort of knew, I want to go and do this, and it's very much down to me to go and get it done.
I think like people might be curious as well, right? Because obviously there's a degree of outside influences, not from parents from a point of view, from a personal point of view, when you're doing something. For example, when you train at the gym, when you train at obviously hockey training like yourself, or cricket, or any sort of sport, or anything, even like even it's a weird example, right? But people will be able to relate. Even putting a bottle on a lid, a lid on a bottle. See when you're twisting it and stuff like that, and you can't get it right on sometimes, and that's because there's usually stuff playing in your head that is not focusing you from that. It's the little things like that people actually tend to forget. So how do you block? Because obviously, if you don't, because I have watched hockey. For people that don't know, when I did taekwondo and I competed for Scotland when I was younger, and that quite a lot. It was number 2. But anyway, when we used to go and watch Five Flyers, like literally every Friday, Saturday, sometimes, or whatever day it was. I think it was Friday, Saturday. The days could be completely wrong. I don't know, but I think that's what it was. But and we used to do things with them, and we used to watch it a lot. And it's always like, if you take your eye off the ball once, or even for a millisecond, I've watched videos, especially after speaking to you, and that there were people like literally getting annihilated and stuff. So how do you block out those outside influences, even if they are really negative and you're hurting? How do you block that out to fully focus on hockey? Like, how do you do that? Because that's obviously quite admirable to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I think that's actually very relevant to sort of the position as well, because as a goalie, you spend a lot of time with the puck down the other end and not doing stuff. I think that was one of the things I had to sort of, I guess, practice, and also just through time got better at, was like compartmentalizing things, like parking things at the door, because it is easier said than done. Like people will say, if something's not going your way, then just don't think about it or put it behind you. And easier said than done, but it's more about just practicing it. You can't do it straight away, but it's just through experience and through having to do it, I guess. I've just got better at tackling the problem at hand. I'm very much like, especially when I play sport, I'm very much in the moment sort of person. I like to look at the problems in front of me and not the ones behind me. I think that's something I use just in my day-to-day business as well, is not getting caught up on things that have happened and just focus on taking on the things that are coming. Because the things that have happened, a lot of times you can't change them. So I don't see the point in letting them consume thought and occupy space in my head, and they really don't have to. And especially for like in relating to hockey and being a goalie, there's you can, if you don't think for like a split second, I'm sure I saw this photo, and like professional ranks, you've got about 0.3 of a second at the longest to react to a shot. So if your mind's elsewhere, then you simply can't do it. So it's about acknowledging that things have happened, and I would never say I just dismiss things, because I found that for me, just dismissing things and going, I'll think about it later, just it simply didn't work. It wasn't something, because I would say that, but then it would creep back in and didn't work. So for me, I actually acknowledge what's happened and went, right, that's happened, and say I've got about annoyed about it, like, right, that's happened, I'm annoyed about it, but I'll deal with that after this, and I'll deal with that when I've got the time to devote to dealing with that. And right now I've got something else to switch on for, and I actually have that sort of mental talk with myself in my head about, you need to switch on here, you need to tackle the problems at hand, and take things one step at a time, or one shot at a time, I should say.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. So again, it's quite, it's interesting speaking to somebody from like a completely different avenue from what I've been in, like completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you who know my past and that know that, oh, I wasn't the most healthy person ever. I think that's a good way of putting it. And I think that having an ethic like that where you're driven to be like driven towards a goal, but you also know you know how you're going to get, you know where you're going to get, and you know maybe how you're going to get there, but you don't have a clue about anything else. So I think it's quite, it's admirable, and you know, such a young person like yourself. But again, it comes down to, though, there must have been like some sort of influence, or maybe like a trigger or something to make you as um driven as you are, or is it, so I want to kind of try and get into that a little bit. So what because even in the gym and that, you're pretty focused compared to a lot of people in our gym,
Mm-hmm.
and that's nothing on anybody in our gym, but it just is what it is. There's people that go to our gym that are, I mean, there's a guy, what's it? Is it Dylan Mason or something like that? I'll shout him out in that. I don't talk to him. I've just seen him in the gym, and he trains really hard, really, really hard. And there's a couple other guys like Ross Kerr, obviously, who's, professional bodybuilder who goes to the gym, trains incredibly hard. And obviously like myself as well. And there's a lot of people, but there's people that don't. But even when you're in the gym, you take it very seriously. Is that because like you value time, or how do you personally value your time?
Um, another good one. I like to use my time the best way I can, really, and especially about the gym is when I go in. It's not I don't enjoy the gym, but I like to get things done quickly and in the best way possible. I'm not wanting to hang around and do like 10 reps or 10 sets or something when that's not the best way to do it. I'd rather drop the weight, go heavier, and do less, just because that's going to be how I'm going to get the best out of that muscle at that time. And then obviously as a whole workout. But in terms of my own time, so more as a whole, it's just about, as I said, I like to use it the best way I possibly can. But whenever I'm doing like playing hockey, even in practice sessions, I'm always looking to get better at something. Like I walk into every session with a goal of get something. It could be something minuscule, like the way I set off the push, I might not be happy with, to something major. When I say push, I mean like sort of push from one position to another,
Oh, okay.
or something major to go in from like side to side. And how can I get better at that, or how can I get better at seeing the puck? Or I always walk into it with something in mind, and even in that gym as well, I always walk in wanting to get to that bigger number, even if it's just like maybe 2.5 kilograms heavier, like the sort of small plates. That I always want to walk in and be better than I was the last time. And I think that just comes down to, I'm quite a competitive person, and I think the person I compete against the most is myself by a long shot. I don't tend to look at people around me on a regular basis. I do. Obviously, in hockey, I like to learn from people, but
Mm.
I don't tend to compare myself to other people, because they're not in my situation, and what works for them might not work for me. But also, I'm not. Unless it can benefit you, I don't believe there's much value in comparing with other people, because as I said, they're not in your situation, and they've got their own thing going on, and what works for them might not work for you. And the more consumed you are by comparing to someone else, there will always be someone else. If that makes sense, there will always
Mm.
be someone that you're looking at going, if say like you're in the gym, for example, and you're looking around you and you're like, right, I'm stronger than that guy, but I'm not as strong as that guy. And then you start chasing that number. But I say there's always going to be that someone that's a little bit stronger than you and a little bit faster than you. And a hockey means that guy can make the save more consistently than I can, and can move faster. And I feel like if you become so obsessed with looking around you to see who's better than you, you actually lose track of where you are yourself. And
Mm.
that, for me, it doesn't just relate to hockey, it just relates to how I do things in general. Like I like to focus more internally than externally, because I like the only person I'm really competing against and trying to be better than is who I was the day before.
Yeah, I
And I
think you lose
think,
track of yourself, to be honest with you, as well.
mhm, yeah, you definitely, because you're so busy looking around you to see what's going on. They don't know what's going on. So inside in your own head and your own body, if you will. But I think that again, that just comes back to how competitive I am. I've always been super competitive. Like my mum says, doesn't know where I get it because she's not like that. My dad again, he's very competitive. So maybe it's from there. But for the most part, I'm almost competitive to a fault sometimes because I just like to win everything.
Mm.
And even like certain things like board games and that, I just like I'm not a bad loser by any means. I can lose gracefully because that's just a part of life. Um, but like to always be putting my best foot forward in whatever I do, and I think that's just kind of how I am. I can't. I'm trying to think of something maybe happened or whatever that might explain that, but I honestly can't. It's just I've always been super competitive, and I think that is very much a sort of root cause for a lot of things that I do.
Mm.
But I think one thing I've also is I had to learn how to use that competitiveness to my advantage because when I was younger, I was guilty of looking around me and seeing who was better than me. And I do like I'll say that I do like just now to have a look and see what people do that I don't, but not I don't beat myself up for the fact that I can't do it. I look at it and go, right, so and so does that. That could be quite useful to me. I'll go and try that out. And when I was younger, I didn't do that. I just looked around me and thought, right, he's better than me. I need to get to that stage. And as I said, there was always someone else. But then when I actually stopped and looked at what I was doing, I realized, you know what, you're not actually doing too badly. Instead of focusing on your efforts on being better than someone else, start focusing on being better than you were like yesterday, or being better than your old self. And for me, that was one thing that really, really benefited me was not, compare myself to my own playing field rather than someone else's.
Mm. Because I think when you start comparing yourself against people can be good sometimes because if
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to like how that Stephen guy was asking me how to check his back, make sure his form's right and stuff like that. And obviously, I was lifting heavier than him. That's obvious. That's without even saying. That's clear why he asked. But I think that it comes down to that if you're as long as you're able to like realize, okay, that guy's for yourself and that guy's training better, so I'll go and ask him how he does it, versus that guy's training better. I'm just going to let it fly and I'm going to try and figure out how he does it without even because most people know that
Mm-hmm.
it's a huge compliment if you're going to ask somebody how they're you know how they're better than you and how they're doing better and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. It's a compliment. But I think that you know something we haven't got into and I think is quite crazy to talk about because I've never known anybody to do it. Is you actually went over to Canada as well to play hockey. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I did. So what year would it have been? 2019. I went to Ontario and I was about half an hour from Toronto,
Mhm.
and I played a level called Junior A, which is a top level for guys my age. I mean, the age bracket was 17 to 21, but I ended up being at the time I just turned 17 when I signed, so I must have only been I was 17 in April and I left in August, so I hadn't been 17 for that long, but I was still the youngest on or one of the youngest, sorry, on the team. And when I went across and I stayed with a lady who just opened her house up to me and one other guy, and played hockey for about 7 times a week, roughly. But that was just came about by, again, I want to say chance, but when I look back on it, it probably wasn't because it was, as I say, I put myself in the best situation to take opportunities, and it paid off. It was quite a nice feeling to know that someone else had seen what I was doing. But similarly, it was also a chance for me to go and challenge myself against the best because the standard over here is good, but then obviously Canada being Canada,
Mm.
it's that place is really well known for its hockey, and I thought this is where I'm going to go. And if anything, it's a great experience to travel and get to go and see a place I've always wanted to go to, but also get to test myself against potentially the best there is at my age group, like full stop, because in the league I was in, there was other imports, as we're called, so people from other countries on other teams. So it was the teams were trying to make themselves as strong as they possibly could by pulling in guys from wherever, and it was a really, really good league to go and play in, because there was never a boring night. I'd gone from facing maybe 20 shots a game maximum to facing 50 shots a game, and there was always, the pace was so much faster than anything I'd ever experienced, and the thinking was just so far ahead. But it almost felt like that's where I should have been, because I always did take sort of pre-game and outside of hockey, I always did take it quite seriously. And over there, that was a big thing, was the work you put in away for the rink, and the work you put in outside of hockey does pay off. And that was also very much where I decided this is what I wanted to do, because I'll be honest and say there was sort of times in between that I wasn't sure where my hockey was going to go, and if that would be the right thing for me, because I was enjoying my academics a lot more than I had previously. I didn't, school was a sort of strange experience for me. I didn't have a lot of friends purely because of I didn't go out and do a lot of things to get a chance to make them. So I met a really good group of, well, at the time I was fourth year and they were all sixth years just leaving, but once I got in with them, and they were a lot smarter than me and had a good work ethic, and that's when they almost sort of pulled me on in that aspect. So I was enjoying my school a lot more, and that was, I think, going to Kansas when I decided this is what I want to go and do. For the foreseeable, I actually want to take this seriously and try and make it full time. And that was, and that was where that became a reality too, because I'd gone across thinking that I possibly could do something, but not knowing for sure what way it was going to go. And then I was lucky that the coach that I had on the team was quite a well-known person in various different circles, and looked on us and went, yeah, if you want to, you can do it. So I just got my head down for 6 months and knuckled in and made sure that I was the hardest worker on the team. Like I'd be on the ice either on time or a couple minutes before, and I'd stay on long after practice was finished, just even no pucks and just skating about and making sure that I was as sharp as I could be. And then I'd go over practice, get something to eat, and I'd be straight back out to the gym. And I only ever had 1 day a week off to call, but on Sundays to call people back home if I wasn't playing. And that was when I sort of thought, this is what I'm going to have to, I want to put myself through this to see if I can do it. And then ended up becoming absolutely hooked on doing that exact thing, and just finding out different ways of making my body do what I wanted to do, and to the highest level possible. And that was, I think it was I'm quite a home person, so I did miss being away from home. But similar, I think that was definitely the trip that made my career, in the sense of it made me realise that I could have one, and gave me the opportunities to do it just by what I put into it. Because I went across thinking, like every opportunity you get, you will get out of this what you put into it. So if I only put half of myself into this, I'm not going to get the results that I want. But if I throw everything I possibly can at this and give this everything I've got, then if I fall a bit short, then I've tried. But similarly, I knew myself that if I gave it everything that I could and left no stone unturned, then I knew that something would come of it, because I backed myself and I backed my work ethic that had done me well for the past however many years that I'd built up as I said earlier, by missing the parties and choosing to do other things. I knew that I had that ethic to do it. So even on the days that I didn't want to train, I didn't want to do what I still knew I'd get my bed, and I'd still go just as hard as the days that I did, because I'd built that up over time. And that was definitely, it was probably a very good trip.
Yeah, I think that again it comes down to how did you manage to get over to Canada? Was there obviously not a competition? That is what I mean. But as in you had to, maybe there was a certain amount of people that they had to choose from, and you had to play against or something like that. That's kind of a competition, not necessarily you won it or nothing like that. But how did you actually get over? What's obviously a plane, but I mean what was the reason behind how did you get over?
I got scouted, so I was just playing in my league over here, and then I got a message from one or two different teams saying that they'd kept an eye on how I was doing and what I was doing, and they wanted me to go and play for them. Just by generally just by sticking in and doing what I was doing, really. And there wasn't any sort of, I know what you mean by like I've got friends who play football and they've had to go and play in a sort of qualifying tournament and all that sort of stuff, but it wasn't anything like that. It was generally just out of the blue one day. Somebody messaged me and said, I've kept an eye on what you've been doing and I'm quite impressed. I want you to come across here. And I checked it out, and obviously because that message you sort of think, well, is this for real? Is this a scam? But I checked it out and it was totally legit. And then a few other teams messaged me from similar areas and similar leagues, and I thought, right, okay, and ended up going with the one that I went with. But yeah, it was just a very much out of the blue. Is this something you'd be up for? And I took it.
So who do you play for just now, or who are? Well, obviously, as people might know, we're in times where that's a hard question. But who if you are playing for somebody just now, who do you play for?
Sadly, currently nobody. I'm currently contractless, but I was signed with a team in the Elite League over in the UK at the start of the season, and my most recent team was a team called Osby in Sweden. I signed with them in the start of October. Went over sort of middle October, end of October, due to different travel arrangements and things happening with COVID, and then sadly ended up coming back at the start of November because we got there, they skated a few times, and then the league got called off due to COVID spiking in that area. But, currently, right now, I've not got one, but the job I'm like anything, I'm in talks with a few different teams and whatnot. There's things on the go, but it's just about trying to find the best fit for me, and what's gonna challenge me and bring the best out of me. Because that's what I like to go and do. I like to go and find the sort of most challenging thing that I can do in the place that I'll probably fit in the best and go for that. Because I don't like to go and sit at a level that I almost like to go at one or two levels above what I think I'm capable of. Because for me personally, I'm more I like to go into the deep end and see how I go on, rather than going at the shallow end and go that way. I like to go straight into the deep end. I'm always told by my friends and my family that I don't do things by halves, and that is very, very true. Either all in or not at all is kind of how I approach things. But it'll just be, I'd like for everyone in my situation too. There's a lot of uncertainty, and there has been for quite a while. But it's just a case of seeing what comes up and what's the right fit, really.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously it's amazing you've done that, and I definitely, you definitely will be going further, considering you're playing for all these different teams, and you're obviously in talks with people, and there's probably people looking at you right now and looking at what you've done, and you probably don't even know it. That genuinely, that obviously happens with a lot of different things. But I'm curious to is there any team, or not team, because that's debatable, because obviously there'll be teams you want to go for, but then you're like, I don't really like the area and all that sort of stuff. So is there any country or that you would genuinely you want to go and play hockey in, for example? Because you never know who could watch this. If there's anybody watching this, what country would you necessarily like to play hockey in? And if you want to say for what team, say for what team, but if you don't, go.
Chance my luck. I think to an extent I'm quite easy. I'd like to go and sort of try out I did Canada. I'd like to go and do America. I got a chance to go and play there when I was in Canada, and obviously couldn't take it because I was playing. But I'd like to go and play stand over there. But also, I just like the traveling. I've had different opportunities come up in different countries, and it's a sense of Sweden was one, for example, that I'd never been to, and I probably would never have gone to if it hadn't been going to play hockey. And it's also that's why I like it. Especially now, I like it because it gives you opportunities you might not have had. Before, I probably wouldn't have been to Canada yet if I hadn't gone to play hockey there. And that's just the reality of it, is the sense that it's a chance to go and do things I wouldn't normally do. So I'll be honest, I like playing here because I do like being at home, but similar, there's not, maybe the sides at different levels in America, there's not really one country in particular I can think of that fancy above other ones. I'd like to go and play the sort of top levels I say in Europe, but like sort of Finland, Latvia, that sort of stuff. I'd like to go and do that, but in terms of what exact one there'd be, I couldn't really tell you. It just sort of depends what comes up and who thinks I'm a good fit for them.
So what's the, obviously we'll go away from hockey now, because I think there's quite a few other questions I want to ask you, but obviously well done on what you've done with hockey, and that's crazy. And I do obviously follow you on both of my social medias. MBK, for people who don't realise, is Mr. Big Kyle. If you want to hit me up on that one, that's my personal one. But anyway, I think like what some people will want to know as well is obviously there has to, most people, they say don't have a backup plan because it means you don't try as hard as your first plan. That's obviously, that's quite a famous saying. It's not necessarily something I would say I'm about 70-30% believing in it, because there is sometimes you do need a backup, but sometimes you don't. Like I generally don't have a backup plan for a lot of stuff I do, because I generally feel it makes me drive faster. But what is your backup 9 to 5, quote unquote normal lifestyle type job? What's the kind of thing you were going to do?
I'm currently a student just now.
All right, okay.
I'm at university just now doing accounting and finance. In terms of the backup plan, I'll be honest with you, I do honestly think there's a value to it, almost because it acts as for me, actually allowed me to go and do what I wanted to go and do, because I knew that when, if it all went the sort of pot I didn't have, that worry of coming back and having nothing. I actually had an opportunity to go to Canada at the end of 4th year. I ended up going in the 5th year, but I deferred it for a year, if you will, because I wanted to get my hires, because I wanted to go to university. And I thought, if I get these hires now, I can go away and almost have peace of mind that I've got something to come back to. As it worked out for me quite well, actually, because I was able to come back during lockdown and get a place in university. But I must say, I'm quite a big believer in a backup plan, because sort of going back to hockey, it's not a job that lasts forever. I think that's the case with every sport. If you're lucky enough to make, the big money in sport, then maybe you make enough to set you up. But that's limited to a few sports, and a very sort of select few people. But right now, I'm a student at Aberdeen and Dundee. That's what I do now to keep myself busy.
What's the see, when you obviously football players get played, personally I think is way too much money, but is the hockey player like not yourself, because obviously you are a professional, but I mean like the level above you when you hit like what's it, Toronto All Stars or Maple Leafs, something.
And that's quite a few levels above me.
yeah, that's what I mean. And like, see that type of level. I don't really know a lot of teams like that. I just know them, obviously. Well, everybody knows them, but like, when my mum was over in Canada, she talked about them quite a lot. But when's the is the money the same as it is for football players? Is it when you get to that type of level, or is it like completely different?
No. From my limited knowledge, footballers make a lot more. I think in the top league NHL, most good, in terms of goalie wise, most good goalies maybe get out 5-6 million a year tops, which I know sounds like a lot of money, but then compared to a footballer who's getting like 700 grand a week, it's not quite as lucrative for the players as sport like football and whatnot, but it is still to get to do what you love to do every day and get that well paid for it. You still wouldn't complain,
No, exactly. 3 or 4 million quid would be mental, but there's I think to get on the motivational side of things, I did tell people this would be a different kind of podcast. How do you stay so driven when like there's because everybody has negativity. There's not one person I've spoke to or had a conversation with. Everybody, you just, some people have it worse than others, obviously. Some people deal with it easier than others, and some people deal with it harder than others. It is what it is, really. But how do you stay driven when there is a lot of negativity out there towards people that necessarily focus on one goal versus like, oh, Cammy, why do you have to go to training tonight? Can you not come out with party with us? And it's like, nah, I need to do that. So how do you focus on the negativity you get from that, if you get it?
Yeah, I think as you say, everyone gets it, and it's like you actually described the scenario that's happened many a time. when we was like, why do you have to do that? Can you not just skip at that sort of stuff? And I guess that's more like sort of just a basic question than negativity. But again, letting it to everyone gets some form of it. But for me, I know that listening to it isn't going to get me any closer to where I want to be, and it's only going to bog me down. I mean, it wasn't always like that. I guess that when I was younger, I took a lot more things to heart. But I guess as I got a bit older, I developed maybe sort of thicker skin and different ways of dealing with negativity, like seeing it for what it is. It's just someone's opinion. Everyone's got an opinion. Doesn't mean the opinion's relevant or the opinion's useful, but everyone has one. And once I acknowledge that, you know, people are going to say what they're going to say, and that's only going to affect me if I let it. I'm a big believer in, you know, you can't change like your circumstance or what someone says, or you can't change the actual action, but what you can control is your reaction. In a sense, if someone says something negative to me, you know, they've said that, but that doesn't mean that I have to take it that way or I have to act a certain way based on it. I can take it on board and then go, right, okay, and then just know that it isn't going to help me and it's of no benefit to me. So then just disregard it and keep going. Because the moment you get bogged in by, because negativity is nothing that you can't change. Like I'm also a big believer in not worrying about things that you can't control, because then things that you can have no impact on have an impact on you. And negativity is one of those things you can't control where it's going to come from, when it's going to come, what form it's going to take, but you can control how you react to it. And for me, it's just I've got quite an analytical mind, so almost at times I actually look at things outside looking in, if that makes sense. Like a sort of an aerial view, if you will. And I take a look back and see the situation from the bigger picture, and you know, like what's been said, right? Is that going to help me? No, and then just disregard it. I mean, sometimes you get, say, in a sense, you almost get lucky because someone will say something to you like, you can't do this so well, in an attempt to try and get to you. But then maybe you aren't. For me, maybe I wasn't. There's a few times that's happened. Actually, I've been told like, oh, you know, you're slow or whatever, and I go, okay, well, maybe I should get a bit faster, and that then it actually goes for you. But it's just a case of acknowledging that it's something you can't control, and the only way I think negativity has a bearing on you is if you let it. It's as simple as that. And I think that doesn't just apply to hockey, that applies to everything for me. Obviously, I'm not going to pretend that things don't get to me. I'm normal, I'm human, things do get to you, but it's about how much importance, how much of an impact you let them have. Just because someone decides to do something to you or say something to you doesn't mean that you have to let that dictate your next move or your next few days. You can take it on board, acknowledge what's been done, what impact it's had on you, and then look at how you're going to move past it. That's how I'll look at things, negativity in sport and just in my sort of general day-to-day businesses. You know, if something comes in that might either rattle me a bit or upset me and annoy me, that sort of stuff, look at it and go, well, you know, it's happened, I can't change it, but I can control how I react to this. And that's almost how you take back the power in those situations, is by knowing that although you can't change it, you can control your reaction. And that's almost how you can, how I think anyway, you can empower yourself in those situations, because it's quite, I know I've spoken to other people and even myself when I was younger, you can feel quite sort of powerless and quite helpless in moments of negativity, especially ones of sort of severe negativity. But for me, the way I sort of take back control is by knowing that I've actually got control over my reaction. I can take a breath, look at this, and I can decide what my next moves are, because nobody dictates my next moves except me. And that's how I look at it now. And that's how I go about dealing with that sort of stuff, because it is easy to get bogged down by it, and it is easy to sort of look at it, and it can almost get piles up on top of you. But for me, I believe there's a lot of value and I'll be honest, I actually quite like when it comes into it, and I know that I can control my next move. It's quite an empowering feeling that you can get from it, that helps you actually take back control and feel better about it, because you know that you can control your next steps.
And for those of you who can't hear, that is a cat trying to break in my door. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but like,
Yeah, I heard a feeling what it was.
oh, that's what I was laughing at. He's at the bottom. His name's Pat. He's just he's a he's a special cat, put it that way. Anyway, there's a back to the podcast. But yeah, I think what you said is very admirable and is very true, to be honest with you. There is like situations where recently where I won't get into, where you obviously know exactly what I'm referencing to, but I won't get into it obviously for personal reasons. And because I don't talk about my personal life on social media or that to an extent. But I think that for me as well, there's situations that have knocked me recently, but I've kind of just realized that if there does come to a time where you have to realize that there is things that knock you, and that genuinely knocked me for 6, as you know, from speaking to yourself quite a lot. But I kind of realized that why dwell over, as they say, why dwell over spilled milk? Yes, it gets to me, and it still gets to me today, and that, and it does, it annoys me here and there. But I'm like, I've got so much going on, and like yourself, you have so much going on as well. You're not doing it. You're literally causing yourself pain and animosity and anger for situations that you can't change. And even if you could change them, it comes down to as well as maybe the things that happen, they happen for a reason. So maybe like even if you can change the situation, maybe it's better you don't. You know what I mean? It does come. It's a different kind of question, but
Yeah. One thing, sorry, just to add on that was the fact that one thing I do believe with negativity and sort of feeling down is the sense that there is a lot of value in actually acknowledging it, because I think that's quite a trend, and I mean I did it myself, and you just pretend like it hasn't happened, and you just pretend like, oh, you know, that just say I didn't, you just say to yourself, I didn't get to me, move past it. But then it does start to get to you, and for me, I believe that, you know, the longer you ignore something, the more of a bearing it has on you. So now, especially with me, if something's got to me, I acknowledge it, and I've actually been, I've done a bit of reading, and I'm quite interested, like the sort of guys like Ant Middle and Jason Fox, the I think they're on that, is it that SAS TV show or something?
yeah, my brother watches
I
that.
think
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called. But I went down sort of YouTube rabbit hole one day. You know, when you start watching one thing, end up on a totally another. But it was both those guys talking, and I found it really interesting. And that's what they were saying. Like, there's actually, because those guys are meant to be like really really tough, and you imagine they're scared of nothing. But that's what they say. Look, you know, things do get to us, but we actually acknowledge it and learn how to use it. And that really interested me. And like everything, I was looking for a way to, you know, for me, I'm always looking for ways to get better at really everything. And that was one thing I've learned and I've had benefit from too, is, you know, the longer you ignore something and pretend like it has no impact on you, the more impact it actually does have on you. So there's a lot of value in acknowledging things. And like I did it, I did it without really knowing I was doing it. So I can now sort of look back and go, right, okay, I actually did do that. But like I said earlier with the hockey, like how to compartmentalize for playing hockey was, you know, acknowledging what's happened, how it's made me feel, and then knowing that I will deal with it when I'm ready to deal with it. But I won't just say that and ignore it. I will say it and actually go and deal with it, because in order to get past things, you have to confront them. That's simply, or that I believe in, that's simply the way it is. Like you can't deal with something by ignoring it. You know, if you had, say there's a more sort of practical example, say you've got a crack in your wall. If you ignore that crack, it's not going to go away. It's still going to stay there. You might just not see it as much. It's still going to be there. It's not going to go away. You can actually address it head on and fix it. And that's the same for things like stress and different problems that they have. And that you've got to acknowledge them and sort of respect their impact on you and respect what bearing they have, and then deal with it when it's most appropriate for you to deal with it, but deal with it nonetheless.
Yeah. I think it's no, on you.
Sorry, I think it's quite easy to people go like, yeah, I will deal with that, but then not actually get around to it and just think, oh yeah, I'll do it at some point. But the sooner you address whatever issue it might be head on, the sooner its effect on you is minimised and mitigated. And more, that's happening for me. Most times mitigated is because I've ignored a problem, I've looked at how I'm going to deal with it, and then I've gone a bit and done it. And that can, for me, I've applied that to everything, and I must say it's genuinely had the positive impact I wanted to have.
Yeah, I think the question I always like asking people And I'll ask it now because it's completely irrelevant to what we're saying. I think it's the best thing to ask this question is, what would you say is your biggest flaw, maybe professionally and then maybe personally?
It's another good question actually. You got me stumped here. I think right now, I'll be honest with you, right now nothing springs to mind as in the sense, or not in the sense of like a perfect, because by no means am I, but I've not really been sort of looking at myself that analytically right now because I've not had to. But one thing I will say about knowing from, not a regret, but something that I noticed from when I was younger was I almost didn't slow down enough, because as much as I'm very driven and want to do what I want to do, I didn't take enough downtime, if that makes sense. I didn't take the time to just be me and have a bit of fun. And whilst that's paid off for now, and as I say, I don't regret it one bit. Similarly, I think there maybe would have been times that I could have slowed down, and I've almost feel like things have gone, like I've heard of things that have happened even in my family, and it's almost like they've just gone right past me. Like I couldn't really tell you what happened because I don't really remember it because I wasn't fully there, if that makes sense. And so I'd say at that time when I was younger, that probably was my biggest flaw, was not taking enough time for myself and dedicating so much time to, something else, that I didn't take enough time for myself. That's the one thing that definitely springs to mind.
Yeah, I think it's I think with a lot of things, and when it comes to me personally as well, is that sometimes like for example, a good example, right, was today I was at the beach with Mum and my dog, and I actually had to say to myself, I was like, it's the 3rd of June today. That's today. It's the 2nd of June, because I just looked at the calendar there. It was the 2nd of June, obviously, because of the time of night it is. For those who don't know, it's 20 to 1 in the morning, but this fits both our schedule. But anyway, it was the 2nd of June, and I actually said to myself, I was like, I genuinely remember New Year. And I genuinely remember December last year. It's this year.
Same.
It's last year went okay. Last year went a little bit quicker because of what was happening in the world and stuff like that. And but this year it's went crazy. But I guess it's just because of the things you do and the people you meet and the times, and obviously back in the gym. And I mean, the gym. I don't know if you personally know this, but the gym's actually been open. This is the 6th week the gym's been open.
Is it?
A guy, Kyle Muir, very, very, very smart man, by the way. You've probably seen him in the gym. He's like 7 feet tall, and he's built like I can't think of, he's kind of built like Kevin Hart a little bit, like Kevin Hart's kind of big but ripped at the same time. He's kind of built like him. And we were speaking today when I was in the gym, and he was telling me that it's 6 week back, and I was like, you're joking. It generally does not feel like it's been 6 weeks.
That's flown, yeah.
It's crazy. And I said to him, I was like, it made me think. As soon as he said that, it actually put me down a little bit, but it made a lot of sense. And the weights and the way I look and things like that, but it did set me down. I think it's that sometimes you really need to slow down and think, like, okay, you're obviously moving really fast in that, but what's actually happening out with your life that you need to necessarily have in and home in on and concentrate on and things like that. But something
you
I
stop
look
and take a look around at some point as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And see what's going on around you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people don't do that. I mean, I don't do it, obviously, like I just said, but a lot of people actually don't do that. And I know a lot of people that really focus and home in on their goals and home in on themselves, and then realize what they're doing is you're actually pushing people you've known away for years and pushing people.
Yeah.
People may not be attracted to that, or there's I'm not talking like, if you're, guys, girls, non-binary, transgender, whatever you're attracted to. I mean, like, just genuinely people might not be attracted to it, so you force people away and all this sort of stuff. It is crazy, to be honest with you. But
I'm a bit guilty of that myself, if I'm honest with you. Just being so blinkered and so set on one thing that as I said, didn't really stop to take a look around what was going on.
Yeah, like a horse with blinders on, as I say. I'm really bad when it comes to situations that I want to happen now. So, for example, obviously, not so much with the podcast. I mean, there's a really loud van just drove past, and it's literally I don't know what on earth that van's doing at this time. It's not a trailer now. It's crazy. But anyway, it seems to like I'm really bad at when it comes to like if I want somebody to do something or meet up with somebody, I'm really bad like, okay, this is my time, we need to do it now, and constantly pressure, and then forgetting like, but then I've got loads of then I've got loads of stuff doing with my life, but then I'm like, so is that person. Like sometimes it can become very, very, very selfish, you know what I mean? And it is what it is. People like us that are necessarily career driven and just don't want the normal lifestyle. It is, you do kind of forget that type of stuff, definitely. But
I think
something,
for me it was more just about like things for myself. Just went never like on anyone else, and I think just like I missed like chances I could have gone out and done something or tried something new or whatever. Just things like that.
yeah, I think that I think as well as it comes down to the fact that people don't actually realize what's the um what's the impact it has on us as people, as well as like, obviously it does have a huge impact, because then you realize what you've missed and how you've missed it, and that it's pretty crazy. But
Yeah,
and
yeah,
obviously
definitely.
people take it the wrong way as well. They take it as you just being, like I said, selfish, which I have been sometimes myself when it comes to career and stuff like that. But you're not. You just genuinely don't think of the negative side of stuff, because you don't let that negative side of stuff get to you. You home in on the positive and you home in on your goal, that all this negative stuff, you're pushing it to the side when you really should be concentrating on it. But like I said, it's like a horse with blinders on. Pretty much that's
Yep.
exactly what it is. But I do want to, and something we brought up in the last podcast, and I almost forgot about it, but I do want to talk about it now, is your social media.
Yeah.
And you know exactly where I'm
I know
going
this is
with.
coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's I focused in on it, and I'll give myself props here just as I go into social media. I give myself props here that it was a very spur of the moment thing, and I was very proud of myself when I came up with it
Good
like
question.
a child.
Good question.
But your social media, now I don't know, obviously I do, but forget I've already asked you this. I don't know necessarily if you have removed anything, but your social media is very, I mean, your second picture is hockey stuff, a very young picture of you, but it's a very hockey stuff.
I need
2017.
to go and check this now. I've
I've not
forgotten.
I've not actually had an Instagram. I've not had the same Instagram that long. I constantly change it. That's because I constantly try to brand myself with something. But it's very like professional wise. So I'm curious to why, and I'm curious to like, have you always been like that when it comes to social media and things, or have you genuinely adjusted it because somebody was like, look, you need to take that down, or because there's a lot of like people have pictures of them out drinking with their friends or out drinking here or doing this or doing that, but yours isn't very like that. It's very like career driven based type stuff. Is there a reason why you're like that, or is it just you genuinely always been like kept your social media like clean in a sense of that type of stuff?
Yeah. I, I'll be honest, I think it's always been that way. My view on sort of posting stuff is, if I was to get asked about it, could I explain it and how would I feel about it? If I put
Mm,
something out there, because once, it's why they said that once something's out there, that's out there.
mm,
Um, and I want to make sure that, like everyone, I'm putting my best foot forward. But I think also there was an element of I've not deleted anything by any means, but maybe now I'm even extra careful because it was actually my personal trainer that told me this. A guy called Adam Lusby, who his brand's called Enhanced Performance. Great guy, even better knowledge. It's what this guy doesn't know about fitness and sport specific performance just isn't worth knowing. I mean, he's not even a sort of set hockey trainer. He does a lot more sort of combat athletes, but he took me on and went away and looked into it. And I must say that by the time of working with him, it's just a different kettle of fish, so much better. But one thing he said to me was that and I thought it too, but it was nice to have the chat with someone that understood it. Was you're also, when you're an athlete, you're also have your own brand in a sense, because when someone like yourself, when someone goes on my social media and don't know me personally, this is sort of what I think about when I started playing for teams that had fans, in a sense that when they might, will never actually, or might only meet me, but in like passing or short conversations or whatever. But then when they'll go and look at my social media, and
mm,
when they look at that, what impression of me do they get, and what are they going to think from that? And that was one thing he was sort of very good with keeping me right, was, you know, you're a brand when you get to when you want to be an athlete, when you are, you very much try to promote your own brand as well. I actually thought I didn't post enough, which is quite funny, in terms of enough of stuff that I do. But it was always just been, I've always been sort of like, you know, could I explain this if asked about it, and does this reflect well on me?
Well, your last post was on the
got,
2nd of June last year, so yeah, I mean, nearly a year ago,
yeah,
a year and a day.
I know. I'd say I haven't been up to stuff. I have been. I'm just not. I must have. I'm not just. I'm not a huge photo guy. I'll get other people's photos, but I'm not a huge like, oh, let's grab a photo type of guy. But yeah, I think it's just exactly that. It's more on mine. You know, I've had it happen before that teams have signed me and someone's actually said to me, like, because I think my Instagram's actually on private, but my last team that I signed for wanted to see my social medias and followed me and everything to get a grip of what they were doing, almost like what they're doing with what they were taking on. And because I had it, like, I just, in a sense, as you say, so clean, it went in my favor and looked like a sort of handling my business, rather than, you know, me having photos of, I mean, I'm not like being any crazy night, but say I've been like a crazy night out, for example, and put a photo up, and they're then thinking, well, maybe this guy doesn't have that switch, or maybe his discipline's a bit lacking, or, you know, they won't see that photo and know the context behind it. That could have been off for 3 weeks and had that night out at the very start of week 1, and then gone to the gym every single day in that 3 weeks. They won't know that by looking at that. They'll just look at that and get a first impression, and whether that first impression is what intended to be or not, that's still their first impression, and they're still going to relate that back to me, and that's not going to change. So it's, again, like I said before, for me, it's about putting my best foot forward and whatever I do, and having control over, or as much control as I can over, the image that I give off. I'm not going to sit and say I'm like by any means vain in a sense, but yeah, you do have to. I've noticed that you do have to definitely watch when you're trying to be in that sort of business of what image you're giving off, like how your actions look in a sense, and all that sort of stuff. Because as I said earlier, like, you are definitely, it's something I'll admit I didn't even get in a sense, but it makes a lot of sense when he told me. It was the fact that you are actually almost your own brand, and when teams are looking to take you on, they're looking to see, would you fit with them, and that's a big factor in that, is how you conduct yourself away from hockey, because they've got to know that once you finish playing with them, will you go and cause them hassle, or will you go and reflect well on their team? And social media, and Instagram especially, because I think that's the only one I really use, as a big way of them seeing that. So it's about, you know, similarly how I control what I eat and how I control what I do at the gym and how I play. I've got to control that too, because it's part of the package in a sense.
I think that personally, I think there's something for you with, you know, knowing social media as well as I do, and with helping people. I mean, I have made people have, you know, a considerable, I'm not going to big myself up at all here, but a considerable amount more followers than what they actually do, and within a short space of time. I think something that, you know, there's definitely things that mean you could go over, you know, outside the podcast, where I could give you influences and would help your social media 100%. And I'm definitely going to do that now that I've thought about that. But I think like having your social medias on private is not necessarily a good thing, because at the end of the day, you will, you know, brands will want to see your stuff. And sometimes with having private social media, it necessarily looks like you're hiding something. That's why I don't have it, because I used to be an advocate of that.
I guess so, yeah.
I had to have my social media private for, how long was it? About 2 years, something like that, just because of personal reasons I don't want to talk about. But now I actually don't have it private, and it does help things. But people actually don't realize that when your social media is private, it actually looks like you are hiding something. You know what I mean? Not saying you are. I'm just saying, obviously not. I'm just saying for example's sake. But what I am.
Another one that can.
Sorry.
So I think it's another one that can go either way, isn't it? You can look at it as hiding something, or keeping your business to yourself. It's another one of those ones that can go either way, isn't it? Because, and again, like I said, it's about first impressions. Because, you know, say me and you are two different teams, you could look at that and see, like, oh, what's he got to hide, and I could look at that and go, well, his own business. Another one that can really go either way, but that's an interesting take on it. I didn't think of that, I must admit.
Yeah. So I was going to speak to you about that anyway, but I think your social media should be on private because again, obviously if they're, I'll be brutally honest with people here because I am, as people know, I'm very like, I don't hold back on stuff. And I think like your social media is so clean in that you literally don't have any doubt. If you had something to hide, I'd be like, yeah, Cammy, do not, whatever you do, or Cameron, as your thing's called here, do not unlock your social media because it's really not a wise
Yeah,
idea.
avoid that.
Yeah, but your social media is so clean anyway. And obviously you do need to post again 100%. But I think that we definitely have went over a lot here and have spoke about a lot of things. And I think like from a personal point of view as myself, I have definitely learned some stuff, and I hope you've learned some stuff as well. But I want to say to you personally as well, it's good that you're driven at such a young age of being driven towards a goal, because right now we had in the community, and a community as in the sense of just everybody really, we're very like homing in on certain things that don't matter and focusing on people that don't matter and that are affecting us. But I think the fact that you aren't, and you focus, obviously you have outside and negativity because everybody does. It is what it is, really.
Yeah,
Nobody has a clean
fact life,
life as
isn't it?
such. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's admirable, to be honest with you. But say there was somebody out there right now that was wanting to not necessarily hockey, because as you know yourself, everybody's different. But even if we'll say sport, we'll keep it to sport because it makes it more simple for yourself in that. And what would you say is somebody, whether they be your age, whether they be younger than you, whether they be older than you, what's something you would say to somebody that's trying to focus on becoming, a professional at the sport that they're in?
That's a good one. I think professional level is a different kettle of fish entirely. It's a different. A lot of people think they can go, but once people actually realize what's involved, that can almost deter them. But it just, in terms of going professional in anything really, even for sports, sorry, it's just about you've got to want it, and you've got to make sure you're in it for the right reasons. If you're only in something for what you think it'll bring you, like whether it be you think playing hockey will bring you a certain amount of like popularity and whatnot, then it isn't for you. And you've got to make sure you're in things for the right reasons. It's like anything. You've got to make sure that you're doing it for yourself and not for anyone else or any other reason. I mean, you might have a motivator, but ultimately the thing that will get you through the days that you don't want to go and train and days that you're not feeling it is the fact that you're doing it for yourself. And you've also got to, but other times you've got this block out this of external factors that aren't going to help you. And one thing I think that really helped me was that once I got my personal affairs in check, and once I got myself together and sorted out that and got control almost over my own life as much as I could, I really found that helped me in a sport aspect because things outside were tied down. I could focus fully on that. So it's about not neglecting, not thinking that in order to be a professional athlete, I have to just like block out everything else and go straight in the sport route, look at nothing else. You've got to really take on a well-rounded approach and look at how you can use your personal life to enhance your sport, and then also vice versa. You can take things for your sport to personal life, because that's what's happened to me quite a lot. Is I've found that I do things without thinking in my sport that I can apply to my personal life. I deal with negativity and that and all that sort of stuff, but then I can also use things in my personal life. I like knowledge and emotions and dealing with them that help me in my sport. It's about having a well-rounded opinion, and I would say one thing I would say is look for whatever you can to get better. Because if you're so focused on one thing, you might miss other things going past you that could help you in that. Because a lot of things in sport are how you handle your business mentally or upstairs, if you want to call it that. And that doesn't just come from sport, that comes from everything. So you've got to definitely take on a well-rounded approach. Don't shut things out. Be open to everything. You've got to want to be a person that wants to learn, even outside of sport. You can't ever be thinking that you're comfortable where you are. You've got to be comfortable going outside your comfort zone. That's a big one. It can be little things, as in taking on maybe someone for. I'll look back to hockey. Maybe someone shoots a bit harder than I'm comfortable with. I want to go and get him and then get them to take shots at me, so I'm more comfortable with that. Or it could be in terms like personal life, like doing a presentation at uni or whatnot, or at someone's work. I'm not comfortable with it, and get more practice, and you've got to want to chase that next thing and find your weaknesses and then turn them into strengths, and then just keep repeating that, because even as I said earlier, you might not think you're better than the next person. You'll be surprised how far you can come by just being better than yourself.
Oh, that's definitely, wow. That's, yeah, I like that last saying. Depends, yeah. Now, you know, again, though, is there anything you want to say, you know, before we end the podcast, towards just anything in general just now? Or because you've pretty much covered, you've covered quite a lot, but I'm curious, is there anything you personally want to say to anybody out there just now?
I had something in mind, but well, in terms of like wanting to do something in sport, or just in general, or
just in general, because I think what you said about sport is very admirable, and it's very true, to be honest, very, very true, because there's a lot of the money thing, and I really think that, you know, figuring out what, again, we talked about what players earn, and we talked about this sort of stuff. I really think that it shouldn't be out there, obviously, and not in our sense, but because the only reason we know about it is because it is all over the news and is all over there. I don't think that should be out there, because I think you're bringing the wrong idea into sport, and you're making people look at sport wrongly. And just in general life, is there anything you think that you could give advice to everybody?
Yeah, probably one or two things to say. I think one thing I'll actually look back to what I said earlier is finding a way to cut through the noise in terms of things going on around you. It's very, very easy nowadays, especially, to be consumed by things growing the news and things around you and people around you. But it's just I only know from sort of speaking to people around me, but I feel as I could be totally wrong here. But I feel it's a sort of bigger trend in people getting caught up in things around them and really losing track of where they're at and what they're doing as a person. And I think that's a big, especially for me, I think that's I find a lot of value in doing, is almost a sense ignoring that and focusing more on myself and how I do things, because it's easy to look around the now, everything going on in the news, and that can obviously get you down, and it can affect you. But then, you know, there's some really terrible things happening. People have been hit really bad by a pandemic, which is terrible. And this might not apply. This might not apply to everyone in that sense, but it's just a sense of, you know, cutting through the noise and doing what's best for you, because what worked for someone else might not work for you. And it's easy for me to sit here and say, look, you know, take on negativity, see its value and whatnot, but that might not be for everyone. Maybe some people just simply feel that they can't do that, but that's also okay, because everyone has their own methods. It's just about finding what works for you. And if you can't find it, again, there's time, and these things do genuinely take time. A lot of the stuff I covered tonight is all about it's a sort of mental aspect of things. And I think that's rightfully so, because that is a massive, massive part of everything today, whether it be playing sport, whether it be at work, whatever. Like dealing with stress and dealing with mental obstacles that come your way is a massive part of succeeding in sort of today's life. And I think, you know, finding ways that you can do that effectively is definitely something. You know, if I had to pick between being able to lift a really heavy weight, I don't know what weight to give, but if I had to pick between being really physically strong or really mentally strong, I would take mentally strong every day of the week, because it's so important nowadays. But it's also important for people to realize that, you know, I can sit here and say all this, but I've had practice at it. But if someone isn't feeling that now, that's also perfectly fine as well, because everyone is on, I mean, see all the quotes and whatnot, but everyone's on their own sort of journey and their own sort of path. And it's important to realize that that's unique to you, and looking at how someone else tackles theirs. Yes, there's value in it. Similarly, just because they're doing one thing and tackling their sort of path, if you will, a certain you have to do it, because it might not work for you. And so I think there's as I said, a big trend, people getting caught up in almost other people's affairs, and looking in a sense of how they do things and taking things from them, and then sort of self-comparison and whatnot. But it comes back to the sense that it's okay to not be okay at times, and think, you know, you don't have to feel perfect all the time and feel like you're on top of everything. Like, I'll give an example. A few weeks ago, things kind of went all over the place for me, and I sort of felt there's a time feeling that it's like, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And rather than it's easy to freak out and panic there. But I think that's what glad, because for me, that was a moment I realized I could do what I was saying. Like, I wasn't just going to come on here and just spout this stuff and then couldn't do it. It was time I realized, I could actually take a moment and then work through things. But in terms of that, for me, I find breaking things down is brilliant to do. Like, there's a lot of things can just get on top of you, one thing after another, and you can just really get on top of you, and you can feel that there's no way out underneath them. But it's just looking at problems. I feel like, especially today, there's a lot more things out there that people never acknowledge to be problems that weren't acknowledged in the past. And it's looking at them, acknowledging what they are, and breaking them down, and how working towards a resolution rather than a dead end. So, or resolution rather than an excuse, if you will, because it's easy to look at something and go, well, I didn't do that because of that. And oftentimes there's very valuable reason for things, but similarly, it's about tackling an obstacle situation with the best resolution in mind. I think there's a lot of value in it. Can be whatever you want it to be, but it can be like playing a sport. Maybe you can't do something, or it can be a problem and whatever. But I always feel there's a lot to be said for going at everything with a positive attitude, because you can't have a negative attitude and expect positive outcomes. It's just not going to happen. And it might feel that sometimes it's easy to not do that, and you feel like, oh well, I've got every reason to be negative, and there's a chance that you do, but the only person that negative mindset affects is yourself. That's it. And I think one of the biggest things that really helped me was taking that mindset shift and approaching things positive all the time. Things can almost like fall through the floor, if you will. But if I look at that and go, what's the best outcome I can get for me, or for someone else, what's the best outcome they can get for themselves, and then working from there. Because if you are negative, you almost shut yourself off to other avenues. You might think, this problem presented to me, it's only going to go a certain way. You're so closed off and negative that you only see one side of something. Whereas if you go at it and go, right, I'm going to try and tackle this, and then I'll do what I can, see what comes of it, you then open yourself up to so many other possibilities, whether it be other positive resolutions, other opportunities. It can be anything. But I think the biggest thing that I probably want to hammer home was, it's very important to maintain that positive outlook. I'm not saying you have to be like happy-go-lucky, like beaming 24/7, but when it comes down to it, the thinking, the one thing I believe is invaluable is a positive mindset. You've got to try and take positives from every little thing. It can be, and I'll give you an example. Tonight I was playing cricket, and we got beat quite heavily, but then as a team we played really well, and that's a positive you can take from that. The team gelled well, and it's about taking positives from every little thing, because once you start doing that, you can then free yourself up and take that little bit extra stress off yourself to then be able to go and tackle what's in front of you more effectively. So I think the one thing I would, as I say, would definitely say is to try and have that positive, I want to say positive mental sort of base to work from. Because things are going to go negative and things are going to go south. It's inevitable. But if your base and your base level thinking is always of a positive approach, then I believe personally you will always have a much better time and much better experience tackling problems. Things are still going to suck and things are still going to be rough and hurt and whatnot. But then if you approach them effectively and positively, the opportunities you're giving yourself for outcomes, resolution, whatever it could be, are going to be so much more vast and so much more beneficial than if you're negative and locked yourself off. That's one thing I definitely have to hammer home. And
again, it's really admirable, considering like it genuinely just is, to be honest with you. But I do want to say, having a again, it does come down to, like, there's a lot of like people out there just now that use negativity and for good and for bad. But I think the people that use it for, I think everybody eventually, personally, I think everybody eventually does use it for good eventually. Like for example, myself, I use it for the gym and to lift heavier and stuff like that. But again, there's not much we haven't covered, and I do want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It's much appreciated. Your time.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and what we will do 100% is we're going to plug your non-private Instagram, which it will be, and then your non-private Twitter. So do you want to plug both your non-private Twitter and non-private Instagram, which it will be, people, because I will be speaking to them about
Give me 2 seconds. So my Instagram is Cammy_Paton,
that.
and my Twitter is the exact same. I will say the disclaimer: I don't use many of them now because I'm not up to a great deal in terms of hockey. I'm just sort of talking about this now, for my time. But once I get up and running again, I will definitely make a conscious effort to. Cause I've never been a big poster in general, really. But I will make a conscious effort. I can promise you that. I will make a conscious effort when I get up and running again to put more on there. I will.
Yeah, and I'm gonna after this podcast, even though the time it is, because I genuinely will forget because my mind is just crazy just now. But I will be teaching him about certain things that will help and will boost his posts. So chances are, what I'm going to tell him after we finish the show, and I genuinely will tell you stuff that you might see his posts on your feed very, very soon. So yeah, I want to thank you for coming on and thank you for your time, even though it is 10 past 1 in the morning. It's crazy, but what a pleasure it's been. And hopefully we'll see you in the gym very, very soon. And hopefully train together, like properly train together. That'd be really good.
Yep.
Versus what we usually do. We usually just bang into each other at different points.
Yeah. In passing, yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Likewise, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for everybody watching, and actually subscribe, because I never tell anybody to subscribe, because I genuinely, like I said in the last podcast that isn't actually out yet, I actually do this because I genuinely really enjoy it. So I really need to start telling people to subscribe, because we get quite a lot of views, but we have no subscribers really. So get subscribing. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.